Trump administration's decision to impose sweeping tariffs has reignited global trade tensions. This has far-reaching consequences for economies, industries, and for diplomatic relations. These measures include a 25% tariff on all auto imports and expanded duties on steel and aluminium products into the US. All of this combined signals a return to aggressive protectionism that could reshape America's trade with the rest of the world. And later this week, from the 2nd of April, there will be what Trump calls reciprocal tariffs. Many in the Trump orbit are calling this America's Liberation Day.
It goes into effect April 2nd. We start collecting on April 3rd. We're going to make it all countries, and we're going to make it very lenient. I think people are going to be very surprised. It'll be, in many cases, less than the tariff that they've been charging us for decades.
President Trump's latest tariff regime targets varying levels of severity. Canada and Mexico, America's closest trading partners, face 25% tariffs on all imports. The European Union, too, is going to be subject to similar rates across all imports. China, which is a perennial focus of Trump's trade tactics, will see a 20% tariff on all its exports to the US, alongside the elimination of de minimis treatment for smaller shipments. Steel and aluminium tariffs have also been added to 25% on all imports into America. These measures are all intended to protect American industry, but it comes at the cost of higher consumer prices and strained diplomatic ties. The auto industry stands out as one of the most heavily affected sectors because of the Trump tariffs. The 25% tariffs on imported vehicles and auto parts is expected to add thousands of dollars to the existing price of cars that are manufactured outside of the US. This policy disproportionately impacts middle-class consumers, as many affordable car models are produced abroad and imported into the US. Automakers have already begun shifting a large part of their production lines to mitigate these costs. General Motors has already accelerated its move with manufacturing electric vehicles domestically in the US.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go to 25%.
The financial markets have responded negatively to the announcement of these auto tariffs, particularly in sectors that are directly impacted by these new duties. Auto stocks have declined significantly since the month of February, reflecting investor concerns about rising costs and reduced consumer demand. Dealers have also begun stockpiling inventory ahead of the tariffs implementation starting 2nd of April, leading to temporary surges in imports. In addition to market volatility, consumers are also bracing themselves for higher prices. The tariffs on steel and aluminium will increase production costs for almost all industries, from construction to electronics. Economists predict inflationary pressures as companies pass on these costs to consumers, further straining household budgets. While tariffs dominate the headlines, Trump has also intensified his criticism of non-tariff barriers, or NTBs. Now, Trump views these NTBs as covert protectionist measures employed by other countries. NTBs include import quotas, technical standards, and local content requirements that make it difficult for foreign goods to compete in the domestic market in the US. For example, India has historically used NTBs when it comes to high dairy import duties, as well as stringent certification requirements for agricultural products, as it tries to shield its domestic industry. Countries use non-tariff barriers strategically to protect sensitive sectors or to promote domestic growth. However, these measures often lead to trade disputes and retaliatory action. Trump's focus on non-tariff barriers reflects his broader goal of leveling the playing field for American exporters by dismantling what he perceives as unfair trade practices. India has found itself at the center of Trump's tariff campaign because of its high import duties in certain sectors. Last week, there were 3 days of talks between US representatives led by Brendan Lynch and Indian Commerce Ministry officials, with the aim of addressing these issues while at the same time trying to avert a full-blown trade war. Progress has been made in several areas, including mutual recognition of agricultural and pharmaceutical standards, as well as the establishment of a framework for clinching a bilateral trade agreement later this year.
India is one of the highest tariffing nations in the world. You know that. I know. Thank you for shaking your head, but it's brutal. It's brutal. They're very smart, and he's a very smart man and a great friend of mine, actually. And we had very good talks. I think it's going to work out very well between India and our country. Very, very well. And I want to say you have a great prime minister.
Significant disagreements are still unresolved between Delhi and Washington. The US has demanded greater access to India's dairy market as well as its medical devices sector. These are areas where India has traditionally maintained higher barriers. Meanwhile, India is seeking exemptions from Trump's new tariffs by offering concessions in other areas like reducing motorcycle import duties on Harley-Davidsons and reducing duties for bourbon whiskey. India faces an uphill battle in securing exemptions from Trump's tariffs before they kick in on the 2nd of April. While both sides have expressed optimism about reaching a deal by the fall of 2025, contentious issues like agricultural market access could derail these negotiations. India is hoping that its willingness to cut tariffs on certain goods will appease Trump's administration without compromising its domestic industry. The stakes are high for both countries. For India, avoiding these tariffs are crucial to protecting its export-driven sectors like textiles and engineering goods. For the United States, maintaining strong trade relations with India aligns with its broader geopolitical goal, that is to counter China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific. The clock is literally ticking for both Washington and for Delhi.